Myles Garrett just said something publicly about the Cleveland Browns quarterback situation that I want to examine carefully, because the way it's being discussed in most places is either over-dramatizing the specific words or undercounting what his willingness to say anything meaningful at all actually represents. Garrett sat down with Micah Parsons during Super Bowl Radio Row, an environment that usually produces nothing but recycled diplomatic non-answers, and said, without quite saying it directly, that Shedeur Sanders is in a position to take that starting job if he goes out and earns it. He called him the guy we're looking at. He said Shedeur gets first service. He acknowledged that Shedeur was the last person on the field last season and showed real flashes. Coming from Myles Garrett, in that specific setting, with that specific framing, that is not a neutral statement. Let me tell you why it matters. Start with who Garrett is inside that building, because his standing shapes the weight of everything he says publicly about organizational direction. This is not a player who generates headlines through manufactured controversy or strategic media positioning. His default mode in public settings is disciplined restraint. He says what he needs to say, protects the organization's internal conversations, and moves on. He has not, across his entire Cleveland career, made a habit of injecting himself into quarterback debates. So when he deviates from that pattern in any meaningful way, even with language that maintains diplomatic cover, people inside the building notice. People who know how Garrett operates read the deviation itself as information, independent of the specific words being used. The framing he chose is worth slowing down on. That's what we're looking at as the guy. He showed some flashes. We're going to give him an opportunity to show what he can really do. He gets first service. That combination of phrases is doing specific work. It's not the standard we trust whoever earns the job language that defensive stars deploy to stay out of offensive room decisions. It's not the neutral both guys have a real shot framing that keeps everything technically open. It's a ranking dressed in competitive language. Shedeur is the reference point. Everyone else is being measured relative to him. The qualification, that he has to earn it, is real and appropriate. But the baseline being established is that he's already in the lead, and the opportunity to confirm it is his to take. That's a materially different message from genuine organizational ambiguity about who the starter should be. Denzel Ward's comments alongside this add a second data point from a second established voice in that locker room, and the consistency of the direction both are pointing toward is notable. Ward said on the Kay Adams interview that Shedeur would get first service, that he was the last man on the field last season, and that the opportunity is clearly his. Ward is not typically someone who ventures into these conversations publicly either. His default is professionalism and measured language, which makes the fact that his comments align so closely with Garrett's, in substance if not in the specific delivery, worth taking seriously as a signal about where the locker room's genuine collective belief is positioned. Two defensive stars, two of the most credible voices in the building, both pointing toward the same player without being asked to campaign for him. That kind of organic alignment doesn't emerge from nowhere. Todd Monken's philosophy around this is the piece that makes all of this most consequential. There's documented context from his time with the Baltimore Ravens about how he evaluates quarterbacks, specifically that he pays genuine attention to what a quarterback's teammates say about him, because that peer evaluation gives him information about actual leadership that film alone doesn't capture. When a coaching staff is led by someone with that philosophy, and the two most respected defensive players in the locker room are both publicly communicating belief in a specific quarterback, that information is landing somewhere meaningful. Monken is not the kind of coach who dismisses what his players think about the most important position decision he'll make. He's the kind of coach who treats it as one of the inputs into his evaluation process. And the input coming from the Garrett and Ward direction is clear. Now let me address the Watson financial dimension directly, because it's the weight that sits underneath everything and makes the situation more complicated than a simple football evaluation. $46 million in cap space in 2026, fully guaranteed money that no other organization in the league has expressed willingness to absorb. That number is not going away regardless of what happens on the depth chart, and the organizational pressure it creates is real and has to be acknowledged honestly. There's a version of the argument that says the investment deserves one more genuine opportunity, that given everything the organization has spent and committed, Watson at least deserves a clean shot in a healthy condition under a new coaching staff to show whether anything of what he was in Houston is still functional. That argument isn't completely without logic. Watson at his best was genuinely elite. A quarterback who changed games, who made difficult throws look routine, who produced at a level that convinced a franchise to bet its draft capital and its financial flexibility on him. If even a partial version of that player exists and a new offensive coordinator can access it, there's an argument for giving him the opportunity to demonstrate it before the chapter formally closes. But here's where the Watson argument runs into a wall that logic can't easily get around. The internal medical evaluation of his physical condition has been described by people with genuine access to the organizational conversation conversations in terms that go considerably beyond normal injury concern. The characterization coming from inside that building isn't Watson needs time to get back to full strength, or Watson's situation requires careful monitoring as the season progresses. It's closer to Watson represents a genuine game-by-game physical availability question that a coaching staff cannot build a competitive plan around with confidence. 2 Achilles injuries, the initial tear and the re-tear during recovery. Combined with the specific physical demands of playing quarterback at the professional level, create uncertainty that positive off-season workout footage cannot meaningfully address. And when a coaching staff is operating with that level of internal concern about a player's availability, the football decision essentially resolves itself before the competition officially begins. The sunk cost dimension of all this deserves honest acknowledgement, because I think it's where organizational decision-making most commonly goes wrong in these situations. The $46 million doesn't come back. It doesn't return because Watson starts week 1. It doesn't get recovered through any competitive arrangement the Browns might structure around the quarterback room. The money is gone regardless of the outcome. The only question that produces genuinely different outcomes for the franchise, is which decision gives Cleveland the best chance of building something worth building. Forcing Watson into a starting role to justify a contract that's already been paid out is not a football decision. It's a psychological response to sunk cost, dressed up in language about competition and opportunity, that costs the organization the developmental environment its young quarterback needs, and the organizational clarity that its locker room is clearly ready for. What Garrett's public statement represents in the larger context of the franchise is something worth examining beyond just the quarterback decision itself. Garrett has stayed in Cleveland through years of organizational dysfunction that would have justified departure in the eyes of most observers. He has watched coaching staffs cycle through, quarterback situations deteriorate and reset, front office decisions produce disappointing returns on significant investments. Through all of it, his competitive output has never reflected the organizational chaos around him. He has been dominant, weekly, regardless of circumstances. And that consistency, chosen consistently over time, when alternatives were available, is the foundation of the credibility that makes his public signal about Shedeur Sanders carry weight that a different player's similar statement wouldn't carry. When Garrett points in a direction, he's not speculating or playing politics. He's telling you where the building actually is. The thing I keep returning to when I think about Shedeur's position right now is what he demonstrated at the end of last season in the most specific football terms. 2 consecutive divisional wins as a cold start rookie without preseason preparation. Teams that had a full week of film, specifically on him as a rookie starter. Defensive coordinators who spent that entire week designing their game plans around exposing the specific vulnerabilities that come with limited NFL experience and no preseason reps. And he found ways to win, both times. That result requires real things. Pocket management under professional defensive pressure, the ability to adjust at the line when the initial read is compromised, the capacity to keep skilled players trusting and engaged when the game gets tight and the pocket starts breaking down, the competitive architecture to finish drives when the outcome is on the line. Shedeur demonstrated all of those qualities in conditions that were specifically calibrated to expose any weaknesses in them. That's what earned the locker room's belief. Not the draft position, not the name, not the platform around him. The actual football, played under actual pressure, producing actual wins. The broader organizational picture that Garrett's statement points toward, and I think this is the most important framing for what's happening in Cleveland right now, is a franchise that may finally be approaching the quarterback commitment clarity it has consistently failed to achieve. The pattern of the last 2 decades is well documented, moments when a young quarterback earned the organizational commitment that would have given his development the foundation it needed, and moments when that commitment was diluted by competing considerations, alternative candidates, or the financial weight of previous investments. Baker Mayfield went through a version of it. The organizational inability to fully commit, to plant the flag, orient every resource, and tell the locker room unambiguously that this is our quarterback and everything from here is designed to help him succeed, has been one of the most persistent and costly failures in the franchise's recent history. What Garrett and Ward signaling publicly, what Monken's philosophy about player input into quarterback evaluation implies, and what the organized locker room belief building around Shedeur suggests, is that this time the commitment may actually arrive with the clarity it has historically lacked, not just as a formal depth chart designation, as the full organizational weight of a franchise that has decided it knows what it has and is going to act like it. That means first-team reps without artificial division, scheme installation built around Shedeur's specific physical and cognitive profile without competing considerations, the locker room operating from a shared assumption about the future rather than a diplomatically maintained ambiguity that everyone knows doesn't reflect the actual organizational direction. When that clarity exists and when the most respected player in the building has already signaled where the building actually is. The developmental environment that young quarterbacks need to become what their ceiling allows becomes available. And based on what Shedeur showed at the end of last season under conditions that weren't designed to make him look good, what that ceiling actually is should be one of the most interesting questions in the AFC heading into 2026.